A lot of you have been asking about which 1080p 144Hz or 240Hz monitors to get, and so I thought I would condense all of my advice and experience and thoughts into one video for you. Now, like I said, this video will be a mix of both my opinions and experiences and objective facts, so take the whole thing with a pinch of salt and make your own mind up, but here's a few recommendations from me. But first, a message from this video's sponsor, ASRock. Their new X299 Taichi CLX board is a premium option for Intel's new 10th generation HEDT chips with 13-phase power delivery and dual 8-pin EPS CPU power connectors, along with Dragon 2.5 gigabit per second LAN, new Wi-Fi 6 support meaning up to 2.4 gigabits per second, and, of course, polychrome RGB lighting. If you'd like to know more about the X299 Taichi CLX, check out the link in the description below, and thank you to ASRock for supporting the channel. So let's start off with the 140Hz options, since these are going to be the most popular. In the UK, these start at £165 but can go well above 200 depending on what brand and feature set you want to go with. Starting off with the cheapest, that £165 monitor, is the Asus VG248QE. It's one of the older ones now, in fact a number of years old, which means that while it's still a competent 1080p 140Hz monitor, its panel is definitely one of the older ones, and so it's not going to be quite as good as some of the newer options for stuff like ghosting or viewing angles or even response time, depending on which one you look at. It also doesn't have any type of adaptive sync, so if you want to have FreeSync or G-Sync support, you're going to have to look elsewhere, but it does have a fully adjustable stand if you want to do height adjust, tilt, swivel, or rotate to put it in portrait mode. It's not the best, but it's certainly not the worst either. Now, basically all of the monitors I'm going to be talking about from here up the price range all have either FreeSync or adaptive sync, and thanks to Nvidia's recent change of heart, you can now use FreeSync or adaptive sync with Nvidia cards. You may have some issues with compatibility, but in my general experience, they've all been pretty good. So moving up in the world, the next monitor I can actually personally recommend is the AOC G2590FX. This one loses any adjustability in the stand bar tilt, but is a much newer TN panel, has a really great gaming experience, is still pretty responsive, is still actually has pretty decent input lag, and overall is a very good option for the price points. I reviewed the PX version, which is basically the exact same monitor but with a USB 3 hub and a fully adjustable stand, so you can check out that review, hopefully in the cards up above. On the same kind of £180 price point, MSI do a pretty interesting option here, the MAG241. Now, this isn't one I've had my hands on personally, but from what I gather, it's a pretty interesting option. It's a curved VA panel, so if you prefer curved over flat, I don't personally, but fair play, here's a good option for you. And in terms of the VA panel, it's going to have a little bit better in terms of colors and viewing angle, while potentially being a little bit worse on the input lag and ghosting and general response time side of things. But from my experience with MSI's other VA panel monitors, they've been pretty good, and so I don't have too much of a problem recommending it. And finally, in the 144Hz bracket, the top end monitor I can really recommend here is actually the one that sat next to me, the AOC 24G2U. This is pretty much one of its kind in this class right now because it's IPS and 144Hz. Now, that does mean that it's a little bit slower in terms of greater response time, I think 5 to 7 milliseconds compared to the usual 2 to 3 with a TN panel, but in terms of input lag, it's actually the best I've ever tested at around 22 milliseconds for total system, which is very impressive. It's also a very nice gaming experience, is under £200, and I cannot recommend it anymore. Definitely go check this out. I'll have a full review of this very shortly, so if you're interested, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for this. Moving up into a kind of in-between category of 165Hz, this is only really occupied by people like Asus with their VG258QR. Now, this is a £275 monitor right now, which is a full, actually about £100 more expensive than the AOC one I just mentioned. And while it does have that slightly higher refresh rate and a claimed 0.5 millisecond greater response time, which I found out is actually just a minimum quoted time, so a very tricky way to talk about that there, Asus. Personally, I can't overly recommend this because you don't get an appreciably better gaming experience at 165Hz over a standard 144Hz monitor, and especially for a full £100 more, it's a bit hard to recommend, but if you want it, it's there. And finally, we've reached gaming nirvana, 240Hz. Now, I've talked about whether you should or shouldn't buy 240Hz monitors before, and I'm not going to cover that in this video. This video is more about if you already know you want one and you're not too sure which one to buy. So let's start off with the cheapest one. Remarkably, Acer offer a £250 option here, making it cheaper than the 165Hz monitor from Asus, but with all things that sound too good to be true, it kind of is. See, the Acer monitor I'm talking about here is actually a standard 144Hz monitor that with the right cable and graphics card, you can overclock to 240Hz. Your mileage completely will vary here, and so I have to give this a bit of a buyer beware warning if you do plan on picking one of these up. Now moving on to a real 240Hz monitor, if an older one, it's the AOC AG251FZ. Now this one is under £300, but is, like I said, one of the older models, so the panel isn't exactly brand new. It's certainly not a bad option, but if you can spend a little bit more, you can get a much newer model in the Alienware AW2518HF. Really rolls off the tongue. That one is a very funky looking design. It's not one that I've had my hands on personally, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, and so it seems like a pretty decent option to recommend. And finally, the king of the hill when it comes to 1080p 240Hz monitors, the Asus XG258Q. Now, Asus were one of the OG 240Hz makers, and so I'm sure they feel it's only right that they're at the top of this list, but it's still a very interesting monitor. I reviewed the G-Sync one, the original version, quite a while ago now, and was a fantastic gaming experience, and now that the FreeSync version, the cheaper option, is available, it's pretty hard not to recommend it, as long as you don't mind spending a cool like £400 on a 1080p 240Hz monitor. And before we wrap up, an honourable mention here has to go to ViewSonic, who make some great monitors, especially in the 1080p 144Hz and 240Hz categories, but didn't quite make it into this roundup for the specific price points we're talking about. With that said, if you want to check out any of the monitors I've talked about in this video, there are links to them all in the description down below, so do check those out to see pricing when and where you watch this, because they are Amazon links, they're global Amazon links, they're also affiliate links, so keep that in mind, but they will take you to your local Amazon store where you can see pricing when and where you watch this, because it can and does vary. So with all of that said, I think that wraps up this video. If you want to see more videos like this one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, especially stuff like a review of this AOC IPS 1080p 144Hz monitor, then do hit that subscribe button with the bell notification icon. Otherwise, you can check out the rest of the links in the description down below to support the channel. There's a load of things that you can do, from Amazon or Overclock's UK affiliate links that don't cost you anything to use, but massively help me out when you do use them, or for merch for hoodies or t-shirts like this one, or a load of other designs. Also Patreon if you want to get cool rewards and support me directly, private internet access, there's a great and cheap VPN, or even Streamlabs OBS to start streaming with, well, Streamlabs OBS. Otherwise, you can check out some more videos over there if you want to keep watching. Of course, some of the reviews of the monitors I've talked about in this video. And otherwise, if you have any questions, leave those in the comments down below too. With that said, I think that's pretty much it. I will see you all in the next video.